Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for showmanship ages 17 to 18. Again, this is the third and final call for showmanship ages 17 to 18. Attention to the bars, attention to the bars. This is the second call for showmanship, ages 15 to 16. Again, this is the second call for showmanship, ages 15 to 16.
Well, let's give these exhibitors a nice big round of applause here as we move into this first class here in this dairy feeder showmanship lineup. I think a really nice job by these 5 individuals here in this class, and I think, you know, when you start analyzing these top 2 showmen here, I think both of these young folks have done a really nice job, and it got kind of close there at the end, and I kind of let them go a little bit longer to see, because both their calves had kind of rocked out of place, and I was waiting for them to kind of regroup the calves, but the young man that's going to win this particular lineup for me really does an excellent job working the front end of this calf. I really like the way he's able to keep the head elevated, not only on the standstill, but on the get-go when you get around the ring as well. Really very calm, very relaxed with the calf, does an excellent job in terms of front leg placement, does a really nice job up on that front end of that calf as well. It does a really nice job as well up on that front end of that calf, keeping that head up, keeping the calf on the move. When we got on the standstill, I really liked when he was able to get the calf into the profile, did an excellent job getting those legs directly up underneath that calf on that front end, and did a nice job there on the back leg profile on that calf. Now, the contest went on a little bit and kind of let that calf get a little bit down top, and he kind of got the calf a little stretched, but he kind of got the calf regrouped there when we got him back in the lineup. Young lady that comes next in this lineup, I really like her demeanor as well. Very calm, very relaxed here in this particular go-round. What I'd like to see her change just a little bit when we got out here on this particular profile, I'd like for her to watch the front end of that calf. At times, the calf's front end went out a little bit more rather than a little more upward. I'd like for her to make sure that she watches the front end there, to make sure she keeps the head elevated straight upward. She kind of got the calf off the front and just a little bit more stretched than I'd like to see. I know that calf was fighting her a little bit there. She does an excellent job in terms of feet and leg placement. I just like for her to watch the front end there to get that head a little more elevated and a little more upward rather than outward in the lineup. The young man that's going to come next in this lineup really does a nice job as well. Does a nice job keeping the top down on this particular calf. Does a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement. I would like for him to be able to keep that head up just a tick more. At times that calf got a little more downward headed, but I think really an excellent job in this particular go-round. He really did a nice job, very calm, very relaxed, very quick about feet and leg placement, very accurate about the feet and leg placement as well. The young man that comes next in this lineup, I'd like for him to watch those back legs. At times we get that calf stretched a little bit too far for my particular preference. I'd like for him to make sure he gets those back legs tucked up underneath that calf just a little bit more. And then when we got onto that profile, at times we got those the front legs stretched just a little bit more. I'd like to see that calf a little more square, a little more straight right off that front end to move on up here in this go-round. Young lady that comes next in this lineup, very calm, very relaxed as well when she gets out here. I'd like for her to watch in terms of the front end of this particular calf. She's got the calf a little more staggered in terms of foot placement on that front end, and I'd like for her to slide just a little bit closer to the halter on that calf. And that calf had a little more rock to him off of that front end in terms of being able to keep that head in line and keeping the head up. The calf was getting a little more loose fronted up on there, and she was kind of having to fight the calf on that front end to keep those front legs in line and wasn't able to keep the calf set as much as those other young folks in the lineup. But a really nice job here in this particular go-round. So let's give him a nice big round of applause here to start off your show.
Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third call for showmanship, ages 15 to 16. Again, this is the third and final call for showmanship, ages 15 to 16. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for showmanship, ages 14. Again, this is the first call for showmanship, ages 14. Thank you for attending the Fulton County Junior Fair. We are happy that you can celebrate the Junior Fair exhibitors who have worked hard to achieve their completion of their 4-H and FFA projects. All persons on the Fulton County Fairgrounds are required to have a wristband. All persons are required to wear a face covering that covers the chin and nose while on the fairgrounds, specifically in a barn, bathroom, office, or arena. Hand sanitizer should be applied regularly. All hands should be washed frequently. Hand sanitizing stations are located throughout the fairgrounds. All show arenas are sanitized daily. We ask that you observe proper social distancing of 6 feet or more between different groups. Groups cannot be more than 10 people. Please refrain from shaking hands, giving hugs, or other forms of physical contact. Consider giving a nod or a friendly wave to people you know, judges, fellow Junior Fair exhibitors, and other non-family members. Seating inside Spangler Arena and the Sale Arena is at approximately 50% capacity. Every other bench will be marked, signed, or taped off for no seating. With limited seating, please allow priority seating for attendees with Junior Fair youth currently exhibiting in the ring. Additionally, please leave your seat as soon as possible after your exhibitor is done showing. We want you to have a positive, healthy experience at the Fulton County Junior Fair. Thank you. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for showmanship ages 14. Again, this is the second call for showmanship ages 14. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for showmanship ages 14. Again, this is the third and final call for showmanship ages 14.
Well, let's give a nice round of applause to these young folks here as we come into this next class here in the showmanship division. I think a really nice set of showmen all the way down through here. You know, as we start to come up on this top end, the young lady that's going to win this class, really very calm, very correct about the way she gets the calf presented out here in this particular go-round. The calf, when you kind of put your eyes on him, he's the calf that set the most correctly out here in this particular go-round. She does an excellent job working the front end of this calf, keeping the head up on that calf, does a really nice job keeping that stick on the top of that calf as well, and keeping that top line down. For me, when the calf first came in, he kind of wanted to fight her just a little bit, but she kind of worked through that. She kind of got into the place where she got the calf squared up, she got the calf set, and she kept that up the rest of the go-round here. Now, for me, I think she was the most accurate about feet and leg placement in terms of getting those front legs directly up underneath that calf on that not only on the standby, but on the profile as well. But really, for me, very calm, very relaxed, very correct about feet and leg placement. The young man that comes next in this lineup, I really appreciate his demeanor in this particular go-round as well. I think very accurate in terms of when he gets the feet and legs set, especially when we got the calf on the profile. Now, I do think he's not as quick as the young lady that beats him in here in this particular go-round. One thing I'd like for him to watch as well is I'd like for him to keep that head a little more upward. At times when we got out here on this profile, he got that head a little more downward or a little more stretched out than I'd like to see. I'd like for him to kind of rattle that chain a little bit, wake that calf up a little bit more, and get that calf a little more up-headed off of that front end when I compare him to the young lady in front of him. Young man that comes next in this lineup does a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement on that front end. Now when we got on the profile there, we kind of had the back leg switched a little bit a couple of times in terms of profiling the calf. And one thing I'd like for him to watch as well is I'd like for him to kind of wake that calf up a little bit as well on that front end. That calf gets a little bit more down-headed. I'd like for him to be able to kind of alert that calf up a little bit more and kind of keep that head up and keep just a tick more eye contact when he gets out on the move. The young lady that comes next in this lineup, once she's able to get the calf set, I think she does a really nice job in terms of feet and leg placement. She did a nice job on that profile in terms of keeping that calf squared off of that front end, profiling those back legs. Now, one thing I would like for her to watch when she was trying to get the calf back in line, I'd like for her to make sure she's pushing that calf away from her and make sure she gives herself a big enough circle so that she can get the calf back in line. She kind of cut the calf on top of her and she got herself a little pinned in there on the profile. I'd like for her just to make sure she takes the space. She's got plenty of ring here to work with. Make sure we're pushing that calf around, pull it out, push back in line and get back in line. But really a nice job as well in terms of feet and leg placement once she's able to get the calf set. The young lady that comes next in this lineup, I think does a really nice job on the back legs of this calf, especially when she's on that profile. She did a nice job getting those back legs profiled. Now, a couple things I'd like for her to watch. On that front end, at times she gets those front legs stretched just a little bit too far than I'd like to see. And I'd like for her to watch, especially when she goes to reach with that show stick back to those back legs. She tends to want to take that head with her, and she kind of cuts the front end of that calf off when she reaches for those back legs. I'd like for her to make sure she gets used to keeping that head out, keeping that arm still, and then reaching with that show stick. But really a nice job all the way down through there in this particular go-round. So let's give him one more nice big round of applause.
Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for showmanship ages 12 to 13. Again, this is the first call for showmanship ages 12 to 13. For dairy feeder calf showmanship ages 17 to 18, in 5th place, Faith Curlis. In 4th place, Troy Schroeder. In 3rd place, Cole Richards. In 2nd place, Amberlyn Whitson. In 1st place, Jaden Bannister.
For dairy feeder calf placing showmanship ages 15 to 16. In 5th place, we have Audrey Leininger. In 4th place, we have Lexi Ann Brown. In 3rd place, we have Chase Motes. In 2nd place, we have Nick Smithmeyer. In 1st place, we have Kennedy Keller. Give them one last round of applause.
Our judge today is Matt Kleski. He is from New Albany, Ohio. He received his bachelor's degree in animal science and ag business from The Ohio State University and was a member of their livestock judging team. He graduated also from West Virginia University with his master's in agricultural and environmental education. Currently, Matt works with the USDA Farm Service Agency in Columbus, where he oversees government online programs and a variety of livestock and production agricultural programs. He has also served as an advisor for the Ohio Junior Maine Anjou Association and has coordinated the National June Maine Anjou Show. Matt is also a member of the Ohio Beef Expo, Junior Steer and Heifer Show Committee, and is the OCA Best Committee. Matt has judged numerous county fairs, state fairs, and beef expos, as well as numerous showmanship contests across the United States for the past 19 years. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for showmanship ages 12 to 13. Again, this is the second call for showmanship ages 12 to 13. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third call for showmanship ages 12 to 13. Again, this is the third and final call for showmanship ages 12 to 13.
Well, let's give these exhibitors a nice round of applause here as we move into this next class here in this showmanship lineup. I think a really nice job all the way down through here in this particular class, but the young lady that's going to win this class was really kind of spot on here in this go-around. She's the exhibitor that makes you take notice of the calf that you have the calf she has at hand. And when I say that, that means nothing to do with the conformation of the livestock. It has everything to do with show ring presence. That for me, she's the exhibitor that got out here. She got the calf set quickly. She got the calf set correctly, and she had the calf set the most here in this particular go-around. She does a really nice job, not only on the standstill, but when she gets out on the move, moving at a pace that the calf's comfortable with. She does an excellent job working the front end of this calf, keeping the head up on the calf. It does a really nice job in terms of feet and leg placement. And honestly, not only when she came in the first time, when we were side by side, when we got on the profile, she was the quickest about getting those feet and legs set. And I think in this lineup, she was the quickest and most accurate about the feet and leg placement. So a really good job here in this particular go-round. Young man's calf that air high five. Young man's calf that's going to come next in this lineup. I really like his efforts, especially when we got into that profile lineup. At first here, when we first came in on the side-by-side, at times he wanted to let that calf get a little heavy-headed up here on this side-by-side view. When we got out on that profile, he did a really nice job keeping the head up on that calf, making that calf look natural off of that front end. He did a nice job keeping some eye contact on those back legs. Now, one thing I'd like for him to watch at times is the front leg placement. A couple times that calf got a little more tucked underneath himself than the young lady did up on the top end of this particular class. I'd like for him to kind of move that front leg up, kind of stretch that calf a little more up on that front end, just to give him a little more natural profile when we get out here. But really a nice job here in this particular go-round as well. The young man that's going to be next in this lineup, I really like the way that he works the top line of the calf. He keeps that calf level top, not only on the good air high five. Does a nice job keeping that head up so that top's level down that top line. Now, one thing I'd like for him to change when we got out here on this profile, I'd like for him to watch that front end. He does a nice job keeping that head up. Now, at times he wanted to push that nose a little bit too towards the middle of the ring. That I was kind of standing here, the calf was kind of looking towards me rather than being straightforward, and that kind of cuts the front angle off of that particular calf. I'd like for him just to watch that front end and make sure that calf's going straight forward so that you get the longevity and the longness of that front end of that calf, that you can make sure that you keep that calf looking correct and looking angular when we get up on that front end. But really a nice job in terms of smoothness, very correct about the way you get around the ring, very calm, very collected in your demeanor when you get out here. So a really nice job here in this particular go-around. The young man that comes next in this lineup does a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement. I'd like for him to just get a little bit quicker about his transitions when we go from stop to go and go to stop here in this particular lineup. Very accurate about front leg placement in terms of keeping those legs straight up underneath that calf. Did a nice job profiling that calf as well. Now, one thing I'd like for him to change, I'd like for him to alert that calf a little bit more on that front end. That calf got a little more heavy-headed, especially as we got on that profile. It's getting a little more downward planted towards that nose. I'd like for you just to be able to work that calf up a little bit more, keep that calf a little bit more up-fronted, especially when we start to compare you to those other exhibitors here in this go-round and analyzing down that profile. But really a nice job here in this particular go-round. The young man that comes next in this lineup does a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement. His partner maybe didn't want to cooperate with him 100% when he came out here. When he's able to get the calf set, he's very accurate, very correct about the way he gets the calf set. Just in this particular go-round, I'd like for him to be a little bit quicker about getting that calf set up in comparison to some of those other exhibitors here in this lineup. But really, I think it's just a matter of getting the partner to working with you here a little bit more to be able to get a little bit quicker on that calf setup, not only on the standstill, but on the profile as well. But really nice job here in this go-around. The young man that is going to be next in this lineup, I really like his efforts out here. I think he is very calm, very relaxed with the calf. I'd like for him to watch the feet and leg placement a little bit. At times he gets that calf set a little bit too close together for my particular preference. I'd like for him to kind of square that calf a little bit more, especially when we get up onto that front end. Then the young lady that comes next in this lineup, I'd like for her to watch the front end of that calf. At times she gets the head up a little bit too far and she kind of rocks that calf back, that he doesn't look as natural off of that front end. I'd like for her to kind of let the calf down a little bit so that the calf looks more natural off of that front end and not push up so high that he looks like he's off balance when we get him onto the profile. But really a nice job here in this go-round. So let's give them all another nice big round of applause.
Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for showmanship, 10 to 11. Again, this is the first call for showmanship between 10 and 11 years old. The 2020 Fulton County Beef Queen is Grace Snicky. She is a member at Pettisville High School. Grace is a 9-year member of 4-H and has shown cattle every year. She is also a member of FFA. Grace enjoys helping with the cows and calves on her grandpa's farm. Grace also enjoys track and cross country. She is a member of Young People's Group at St. John's Lutheran Church, where she participated in several mission trips. Our 2020 Beef Queen, Grace Snicky. Dairy feeder calf showmanship ages 14. In 5th place, Dakota Armstrong. In 4th place, Titus Rufinaw. In 3rd place, Luke Slaughter. In 2nd place, Wyatt Armstrong. And in 1st place, Hannah Kovar. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for showmanship ages 10 to 11. Again, this is the second call for showmanship ages 10 to 11. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for showmanship ages 10 to 11. Again, this is the third and final call for showmanship ages 10 to 11.
Well, let's give these exhibitors a nice big round of applause here as we move into this next class here in the showmanship division. You know, as we work down through this class, I think all four of them have really done an excellent job here in this particular go-round. I let these other two, the top two here, kind of work a little bit longer here as we go through this contest, because I think it's close between these two. And when we start looking at them here in this particular go-round, the young man here really kind of, as we get out here on this profile, really came after it in terms of getting the job done, really did an excellent job working the front end of that calf. Now, neither one of them had a perfect go-round in the sense that the calf wanted to kind of fight them a little bit at different points of the juncture, and I like the way both of them kind of work through that. They are animals, they're going to do their own thing, but I think in terms of being able to get the calf set correctly, I think the young man kind of edged out the young lady, especially when we got onto that profile. Really did a nice job up on that front end, keeping those legs directly up underneath that front end, did a nice job keeping that head up on that calf. Whenever that calf would rock out of place, I think he was the quickest about getting those feet and legs back in place in terms of keeping some eye contact, but really did a nice job keeping the head up on that calf, keeping that calf squared, and keeping eye contact on those four legs. And as soon as that calf rocked out of place, he was the quickest about getting those legs back in the lineup. So a really nice job here in this particular go-round. Air high five. There you go. The young lady that comes next in this lineup, I really appreciate her efforts here. When we came into this class, she did an excellent job on this side-by-side. She did a nice job keeping that calf squared off of that front end, did a nice job working those back legs, especially on that side-by-side, keeping that calf squared off that back end as well. Now, when we got out on the move and got onto the profile, the calf wanted to fight her just a little bit, and when the calf was fighting her over here on this end, she kind of wasn't able to get that calf regrouped up underneath himself a little as much as I'd like to see, especially on that profile, to get those legs directly underneath that calf. And I'd like for her to watch at times. She wants to pull that front end a little bit more towards her instead of keeping that head up a little bit more in comparison to the young man that beats her. But really a nice job here in this particular go-round as well. Very calm, very relaxed, kind of work through the issues with the calf. I just like to, on that profile, to be able to see the calf set a little more correctly and keep that head up a little bit more when we got on that profile, because on the side-by-side, he did an excellent job here in this go-round. But a really nice job here as well. So air high five. Nice job. The young lady that comes next in this lineup does a nice job as well. Their partner didn't want to cooperate with her 100% here in this lineup. Now, she does a really nice job here in this particular go-round, keeping the head up on this calf, keeping the front end of this calf correct. Now, I do think at times we get the calf stretched a little bit too far out, that I'd like for her to kind of regroup the calf, get those back legs tucked up underneath the calf a little bit more, get those front feet squared just a little bit more to kind of regroup that calf. Now, as far as getting around the ring, I'd like to see you get a little bit quicker about your feet and leg placement, but I think that had to do with the calf kind of fighting you here. He had other places to be on a Saturday night rather than being here in the ring, but really an excellent job when she's able to get that calf set. Does a really nice job keeping the head up and keeping eye contact out on the move. So let's give her a nice round of applause as well. The exhibitor comes next in this lineup, really does an excellent job here in this particular go-round. I think certainly a positive experience getting out here. Really does a nice job in terms of keeping some eye contact, does a really nice job keeping the calf squared. It does a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement, so I really appreciate the efforts out here. So let's give all these exhibitors one more nice big round of applause here in this class. I think an excellent set of showmen all the way down through there. So a really good job here in this go-round.
Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for showmanship ages 8 to 9. Again, this is the first call for showmanship ages 8 to 9. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for showmanship ages 8 to 9. Again, this is the second call for showmanship ages 8 to 9. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for showmanship ages 8 to 9. Again, this is the third and final call for showmanship ages 8 to 9.
Well, let's give these exhibitors a nice round of applause here as we move into this next class here in the showmanship division. You know, I think a really nice job, air high five. There you go. As we come down through here, I think a really nice job here in this go-round. You know, I think some of these young folks are working through their transitions from stop to go and go to stop, and how they're best going to get the calf set here in this go-round. Now, as we come into this go-round, the young man that's going to end up winning this class did a really nice job in terms of kind of working through the calf when we were on the side-by-side. The calf maybe didn't want to cooperate with him 100% when he first came in here, but when he got on the profile, really excellent job in terms of getting the calf set correctly up on that front end, getting those front legs directly underneath that calf, and did a nice job keeping that head elevated on the front end as well. Now, he had to make a couple circles around there to get the calf back in, and I really liked the way that he was able to utilize some space in the ring and get the calf back in the lineup and give himself enough room to work with. The young lady that's going to be next in this lineup, I really appreciate her demeanor as well. I liked the way when she got in here on that side-by-side, she did a really nice job keeping the head up on the front end, on the calf, and did a nice job getting the calf squared up on the legs. Now, what I'd like to change just a little bit on that profile, I'd like for her to watch at times when she got that calf on that profile, she got that calf a little more tucked up underneath himself. He got a little more roach top. I was waiting for her to kind of stretch that calf out, kind of work that top line down. And at times she got that calf a little heavy-headed on that front end, that she wasn't going as upward as much as I'd like to see, but really very calm, very relaxed. She kept working through this particular go-round, and I really appreciate that here, that she kept working with those legs, kept working to get the calf in line, and certainly did an excellent job as well. The young man that comes next in this lineup, I really liked when he came in the ring. I think he did a really nice job on that side-by-side, getting the calf squared off of both ends. I'd like for him to be able to get around the ring a little smoother. The calf didn't want to cooperate with him 100% there, getting out on the move, and he wasn't able to transition as smoothly as some of those other exhibitors here in this go-round. When we got on the profile over here, I'd like for him to watch at times. I'd like for him to get that head up a little bit more on that calf. He did a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement, but if we go back and watch, the front end of that calf really was kind of down fronted, or a little more downward pointing in terms of the way they got the calf worked off that front end in comparison to some of those other exhibitors. The young lady that comes next in this lineup, when she's able to get the calf set, does an excellent job in terms of keeping that head up, kind of keeping some eye contact there. Now, in this particular go-round, I don't think she was as quick about getting those feet and legs set as some of those other exhibitors here in this go-round, because that calf wanted to fight her a little bit more here in the lineup. But once she does get the calf set, an excellent job in terms of correctness off of that front end. I really like the way she's able to keep that head up on that calf. One thing when we get out on the move, I'd like for her to just give a little more eye contact when she gets out on the move as well. The young man that comes next in this lineup, I appreciate his demeanor here in this go-around, very calm, very relaxed. I'd like for him to watch when we got on that profile, to watch those front legs. He kind of got those front legs a little more straddled than I'd like to see, and I'd like for him to work the front end a little bit more. He kind of let the calf get a little lazy front end on this particular lineup, but he did a nice job in terms of feet and leg placement. Does a nice job making sure we don't pull the head back when we reach to those back legs, but a nice job here in this particular go-round. Young man that's next in this lineup, I'd like for him to watch. When we get out on the move, I'd like for him just to see a little more eye contact here in this go-round, and I'd like for him to watch when we get on that profile. At times he got that calf stretched a little bit too far, that I'd like for him to get that calf regrouped up underneath himself and get the calf a little bit more squared off of both ends. Then the young man that comes next in this lineup, a very calm, very relaxed type of a showman. His partner here didn't want to cooperate with him 100% here. I'd just like for him to be able to get that calf set a little bit more and a little more quickly here in this go-round to move him on up. But a nice set of exhibitors all the way down through there. So let's give him another nice big round of applause.
We will be taking a short 5-minute break between showmanship and market class. Again, we will be taking a 5-minute break between showmanship and market class.
Well, let's give these young folks a nice round of applause here in this next class here in this showmanship division. You know, as we get into some of these younger groups, I really appreciate them getting out here and participating, because I think certainly there's always a positive experience to come with more time in the show ring, no matter where you place here in this go-round. But, you know, in this lineup, the young lady that's going to end up winning this class, for me, kind of had the most fault-free go-round here in this go-round. She moved herself around the ring. She kind of kept the calf squared off of both ends. She did a nice job of keeping a little bit of eye contact when she got out on the move. But in the profile there, she really was the exhibitor that kind of kept that calf upward headed. She kind of kept that calf squared off of that front end. And for me, we just had the most fault-free go-round here in this particular go-round. The young lady that's going to be second in this lineup does a nice job when she's able to get the calf set. I'd like for her to work in her transitions in terms of from stop to go and go to stop. Not as smooth about from the get-go to from where we're standing still to get on the move. But, you know, when we got out here on the profile, I think she worked hard to try to get those feet and legs placed. She got the calf a little more stretched than I'd like to see off of that front end, but that's certainly something something that she can work on going forward. The young man that's going to be next in this lineup, I think has a lot of potential going forward. I think certainly in this go-round, when we came out here to start with, I think a nice job here on the side-by-side. When we got onto the profile, I'd like for him to keep just a little more eye contact, make sure that he's watching the calf in front of him so he gives himself enough room and enough space there to get the calf set. I'd like for him to work in his transitions from stop to go and go to stop. And then the young lady that comes next in this lineup, very calm, very relaxed in this out here in the ring, but I'd like for her just to be able to get the calf set a little bit more, kind of work with the calf there to get the calf set a little bit more here in the go round to move her on up. But a nice set of showmen there in that go round. So let's give them another nice big round of applause.
Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for dairy feeder calf under 350 pounds. Again, this is the first call for dairy feeder calf under 350 pounds.
Thank you for attending the Fulton County Junior Fair. We are happy that you can celebrate the Junior Fair exhibitors who have worked hard to achieve completion in their 4-H and FFA projects. All persons on the Fulton County Fairgrounds are required to have a wristband. All persons are required to wear a cloth face covering that covers the chin and nose while on the fairgrounds, specifically if in a barn, bathroom, office, or arena. Hand sanitizer should be applied regularly or hands should be washed frequently. Hand sanitizing stations are located throughout the fairgrounds. All show arenas are sanitized daily. We ask you to observe proper social distancing of 6 feet or more between different groups. Groups cannot be more than 10 people. Please refrain from shaking hands, giving hugs, or other forms of physical contact. Consider giving a nod or a friendly wave to people you know, judges, fellow Junior Fair exhibitors, and other non-family members. Seating inside the Spangler and Sale arenas is at 50% capacity. Every other bench will be marked, signed, or taped off for no seating. With limited seating, please allow priority seating for attendees with the Junior Fair youth currently exhibiting in the ring. Additionally, please leave your seat as soon as possible after your exhibitor is done showing. We want you to have a positive, healthy experience at the Fulton County Junior Fair. Thank you.
Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for dairy feeder calf under 350 pounds. Again, this is the second call for dairy feeder calf under 350 pounds. Attention to the barns, attention to the barns. This is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf under 350 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf under 350 pounds. Attention to the barns, attention to the barns. This is the first call for dairy feeder calf from 415 pounds to 495 pounds. Again, this is the first call for dairy feeder calf from 415 pounds to 495 pounds.
As we start into this dairy feeder division, the young lady's underweight calf here, certainly a calf that has some completeness to him, has some balance to him. Obviously we'd like to see him pushing a little more weight, but certainly a calf that has some completeness going forward and some skeletal correctness off of both ends. So a nice single entry here in this class. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
In first place, Addison Wilson. Attention to the barns, attention to the barns. This is the second call for dairy feeder calf, 415 to 495. Again, this is the second call for dairy feeder calf, 415 to 495. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is third and final call for dairy feeder calf from 415 pounds to 495 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 415 pounds to 495 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is first call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 505 pounds to 535 pounds. Again, this is first call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 505 pounds to 535 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is second call for dairy feeder calf from 505 pounds to 535 pounds. Again, this is the second call for dairy feeder calf, 505 pounds to 535 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 505 pounds to 535 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 505 pounds to 535 pounds.
Well, let's give these exhibitors a nice round of applause here as we move into this first class here in this dairy feeder division. As we come into this class, obviously, there's some differences in types and kinds as we start working down through this class, but the young ladies calf that's going to win this class really in this lineup has the depth of body, has some muscle shape to him, has the thickness out of that top line, really has that evidence of feeding ability at this point of the juncture. He's a little deeper bodied, a little deeper flank, but a calf that has some stoutness to him as well. When we get right on top of him, I think he comes out of the top of that shoulder with just a tick more muscle shape, a little more muscle shape and dimension when we get right out of that hip. And a calf, when you get right behind him, I think carries the most thickness in through that center quarter and on down into that stifle. The young man's calf that's going to be second in this lineup, I like him in terms of air high five. Nice job. The calf that's going to be second here in this lineup, I like him in terms of balance, especially when we get up on that front end. I think he's very up-headed, very smooth shoulder. Now, when we get right behind the point of the shoulder, I do think he breaks ever so slightly right behind the point of that shoulder. And I don't think he's as expressive right in terms of muscle shape right into the top of that shoulder junction, but certainly a calf that has some depth of body to him, has some depth of flank, a calf that I like the up-headedness to him. I like him in terms of the structure when he gets out on the move. I think he's a long enough strided type of a calf, and a calf that has some internal volume and capacity to it. Young man's calf that's next in this lineup, a little plainer about the way he's designed, maybe a little coarser, a little heavier up on that front end. Now, when I get behind him, I do think he gets a little flatter about his muscle shape when we get down in through that center quarter and down into that stifle. He's carrying enough muscle shape to him, just doesn't overpower you in terms of the expression of muscle right down into that lower quarter. He does get a little flatter and gets a little narrower tracking when we get right down at those lower base feet and legs on the ground. Young lady's calf that's next in this lineup, I like, and on the profile, I think certainly deep enough body, deep enough flank, has some internal volume and capacity to him. Now, structure-wise, I would like to change him. When we get out of that hip, I do think he gets a little steeper hip. I think he's a little flatter, muscled right out of that hip, and it carries that flatness of muscle shape down into that lower stifle. I just like to see him be a little thicker made when we get down into that lower quarter. Young man's calf that's next in this lineup, calf that has some muscle shape to him. I like him in terms of muscle dimension out of the top of that shoulder, right down that top line. Now, when we start to talk in structure, he does get a little more down at the back of that, right at the point of that hip. He does get a little steeper from hooks to pins. I'd like to see him handle those back legs just a tick more evenly when we set him into motion. Then the young man's calf that comes next in this lineup, a little flatter made type of a calf that doesn't overpower you in terms of muscle shape and dimension. I just like to see him be a little stouter made off of both ends to move on up. But a really nice set of calves in the go round. So let's give him a nice big round of applause.
In fifth place, Jamison Gray. In fourth place, Kellen Knopfsinger. In third place, Trey Schroeder. In second place, Jaden Bannister. And in first place, Amberlyn Whitson. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 540 pounds to 555 pounds. Again, this is the first call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 540 pounds to 555 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is second call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 540 pounds to 555 pounds. Again, this is second call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 540 pounds to 555 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 540 pounds to 555 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 540 pounds to 555 pounds.
A nice set of calves here as we move into this next class here in this dairy feeder division. As we work down through this class, I do think there's some differences in muscling that we can discuss here in this particular go-round. The young lady's calf that's going to win this class, for me, really kind of puts the combination together here in this go-round. I think he has enough muscle shape to him, enough dimension to him out of the top line, really carries some thickness out of that hip. When we get him on that profile, he's a deep-bodied, deep-made type of a calf that has some evidence of feeding ability to him, that you like the overall volume and capacity that he carries. I think he balances up well enough here in this go round. He's a little smoother shouldered than the calf that's in second, a little longer fronted than the calf in second, but a calf that I really like in terms of the overall completeness and package that he puts together. The young man's calf that comes next in this lineup, these two calves that are next, second and third, there's a little give and take in these calves, and I think there's some good qualities in each of these calves. Now, for me, where I ended up settling on in this lineup in the second place, the calf that I like in terms of muscle shape, I think he carries enough thickness to him, enough dimension out of that top line. He carries thickness out over that hip, carries thickness out into that quarter as well, and on down into that lower stifle. Now, he's not as smooth fronted. He's a little coarser, actually a little rounder up on that front end, and he's not as loose about his rib shape in comparison to that calf that wins the class. I do think he gets a little more restricted right into that forerib, but a calf that I like in terms of overall stoutness. I think when you get down to those base feet and legs, he has some thickness to him, he has some stoutness to him, and he has some substance of bone that you really appreciate in this go-round. The young lady's calf that's next in this lineup, the young lady does a heck of a job showing this calf and makes you take notice of the calf, and I like him in terms of balance up on that front end. I think he's very angular fronted. I think he's very long fronted. I think he's very long when he comes right out of the top of that shoulder. Now, when I get a little critical of him, when we get him out on that move, I do think he gets a little bit down at the point of that hip, and I think when we get right behind him, he is a little longer, a little flatter about his muscle shape, not as expressive about that muscle design right down into that lower quarter. I guess it's a little narrower base when we get down to those base feet and legs, but certainly very long fronted, long top type of a calf that you really appreciate in this go round. The young lady's calf that comes next in this lineup, a calf that has some stoutness to him, has some dimension up on that forerib, structurally gets a little more roached when we get down that top line, gets a little steeper from hooks to pins in comparison to those other calves in front of him. Then the young lady's calf that comes next in this lineup, long enough made, long enough body type of a calf, but top line wise, I'd really like to level him out, leveling down that top line, gets a little more roached about his overall design, but a nice set of calves there in that go round. So let's give him a nice big round of applause.
In first place, Hannah Kovar. In second place, Dakota Armstrong. In third place, Hannah Kovar. In fourth place, Faith Curlis. And in fifth place, Phoebe Meyer. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 560 pounds to 575 pounds. Again, this is the first call for dairy feeder calf weighing from 560 pounds to 575 pounds. Our judge today is Matt Kleski and is from New Albany, Ohio. He received his bachelor's degree in animal science and ag business from the Ohio State University and was a member of their livestock judging team. He has also graduated from West Virginia University with his master's in agricultural and environmental education. Currently, Matt works with the USDA Farm Service Agency in Columbus, where he oversees government online programs and a variety of livestock and production agricultural programs. He also has served as an advisor for the Ohio June Maine Anjou Association and has coordinated the National June Maine Anjou Show Matt is also a member of the Ohio Beef Expo Junior Steer and Heifer Show Committee in the OAC Best Committee. Matt has judged numerous county fairs, state fairs, and Ohio Beef Expos, as well as numerous showmanship contests across the United States for the past 19 years. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for dairy feeder calf weighing 560 pounds to 575 pounds. Again, this is the second call for dairy feeder calf weighing 560 pounds to 575 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing 560 pounds to 575 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf weighing 560 pounds to 575 pounds.
A nice set of calves here as we move into this next class here in this dairy feeder division. The young man's calf that's going to win this class, I like in terms of style, balance, and muscle shape. I think in this go-round, he balances up extremely well when we get up on that front end. Blends well onto the top of that shoulder, but when you get right on top of him, a lot of power and muscle shape down that top line, a lot of power out of the top of that hip. And really, when you get right behind him, he's the calf that carries the muscle shape through that center quarter and on down into that stifle. So very complete about the overall package here in this particular go-round. The young man's calf that's going to be next in this lineup. Air high five. Nice job. The calf is going to be next in this lineup. I like him when we get him on that profile. I think he's a deep body type of a calf. I think he's got a lot of rear rib shape and dimension to him. I think he's got a lot of similarities to the calf in front of him. Now, at times, I think he gets just a tick more down right at the point of that hip in comparison when we start to comparing down that top line. And I do think he gets just a tick flatter about his muscle shape right into the top of that shoulder. But that's getting critical because I think this calf has some feeding ability, has some volume and capacity to him. He has some depth of side that you really appreciate here in this go round, so it comes towards the top of the class. The young man's calf that's next in this lineup, I really like him when you get right behind him. I think he's got a lot of muscle shape to him when you get out of that top line. I think he's got some muscle shape out of that hip. Now, if I get critical of him, I'd like to see him body down a little bit more. I think he gets a little shallower made, a little higher flank, especially in comparison to those two calves that beat him here in this go-round. But I think length of body, length of top line, you really appreciate him here in this go-round. Calf that's going to be next in this lineup, I like in terms of depth of body. I think certainly has some depth of side to him, has some depth of flank. Air high five, good job. It really does a calf that I like when we get on that profile. I like the side and feeding ability projecting on downward. Now, structurally, I do think he gets a little steeper hip when we get him out on the move, a little steeper from hooks to pins, and a little narrower tracking when we get right behind him. Calf that comes next in this lineup, a calf that has some depth of side to him, just gets tighter made when we get up into that forearm. We get into that front end, a little tighter about that heart girth, a little steeper from hooks to pins, and narrower base when we get down to those lower feet and legs. But a very nice set of calves there. So let's give all those exhibitors a nice round of applause.
In 5th place, Audrey Leininger. In 4th place, Siler Newcomb. In 3rd place, Nick Smithmeyer. In 2nd place, Chase Motes. And in 1st place, Jaden Bannister. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for dairy feeder calf weighing 580 pounds to 595 pounds. Again, this is the first call for dairy feeder calf weighing 580 pounds to 590 pounds. The 2020 Fulton County Beef Queen is Grace Schnicke. She is a high school senior at Pettisville High School. Grace is a 9-year member of 4-H and has shown cattle every year. She is also a member of FFA. Grace enjoys helping with the cattle and calves on her grandpa's farm. Grace also enjoys track and cross country. She is a member of the Young People's Group at St. John's Lutheran Church, where she has participated in several mission trips. Our 2020 Beef Queen, Grace Schnicke. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is second call for dairy feeder calf weighing 580 pounds to 595 pounds. Again, this is the second call for dairy feeder calf, weighing from 580 pounds to 595 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third call for dairy feeder calf, weighing from 580 pounds to 595 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calf, weighing from 580 pounds to 595 pounds.
A nice set of calves here as we move into this next class here in this dairy feeder division. Up on this top end, I think we've got two calves that really have some muscle shape to them, that have some feeding ability to them going forward. Now, we start to talk about differences in the two. The young man's calf that's going to win this class, I like the way he balances up into that front end. I think he's a little smoother into that heart girth. I think he's a little smoother shoulder. I think he's a little longer front end as well. When we get up on that front end, I think he's got a little more power in through that chest floor. I think he's got a little more skeletal width and dimension when we get right on that front end. It really has some power down that top line. He's very long level down that top, very long and level from hooks to pins, and a calf that carries enough muscle shape and dimension to him. Calf that's going to be second in this go round, I really like on that profile. I think a deep body type of a calf that has some rear rib shape and dimension to him. Now, as we get out here, I do think he gets a little flatter, a little finer when we get right through that chest floor. I think he gets a little narrower in through that chest, and I think he gets a little broken ever so slightly right behind the point of that shoulder. But certainly a calf that has some depth of body to him, has some spring of rib, has some evidence of feeding ability to him going forward as well. I think a calf that's just right now but doesn't balance as well when we get right into that fore rib. It doesn't carry as much stoutness right into the top of that shoulder, but a calf that you really appreciate towards the top of the class. The young man's calf that's next in this lineup, I think a calf that's a lot like the calf that's in second in terms of some depth of body and rear rib shape to him. Now, I do think he gives up some length of side in comparison to those two calves that beat him. I think he gets a little shorter from flank to flank, and I think he gets a little flatter about his muscle shape when we get right behind him. I don't think he's as expressive in through that center quarter and on down into that lower stifle in comparison to those other two steers in front of him. The young man's calf that's next in this lineup, a calf that has some depth of side, that has some depth of flank to him. Now, when I get up here in this lineup, I do think he gets a little steeper from hooks to pins. I don't think he balances up as well when we put him into motion. I think he gets a little shorter made, a little shorter coupled off those back legs, and a little steeper from hooks to pins. The young lady's calf that's next in this lineup, a long body type of a calf that has some length to him, has some length of stride. Now, when I get in comparison, I do think he gets a little narrower made, a little flatter about his muscle. I'd like to see him be a little more expressively made out of the top of that shoulder and carry a little more muscle shape down that top line, but certainly a calf outline-wise, you like him enough. He's high enough off that shoulder. He's smooth enough off that shoulder. I just like to stouten him up to move him on up. And then the young man's calf that rounds out the class, kind of like the calf right in front of him, a larger outline type of a calf, a long body type of a calf, just doesn't carry as much skeletal width and dimension off of both ends to move him on up. But a nice set of calves there in that go round, so let's give him a nice round of applause.
In fifth place, Liza Ruvenoff. In fourth place, Tyler Savage. In third place, Walker Armstrong. In second place, Jarrett Rivenoff. And in first place, Titus Rivenoff. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the first call for dairy feeder calves weighing over 600 pounds. Again, this is the first call for dairy feeder calves weighing over 600 pounds. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for dairy feeder calves weighing over 600 pounds. Again, this is the second call for dairy feeder calves weighing over 600 pounds. Braylon Roop, please report to the show ring. Braylon Roop, please report to the show ring. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for dairy feeder calves weighing over 600 pounds. Again, this is the third and final call for dairy feeder calves weighing over 600 pounds.
Well, let's give these exhibitors a nice round of applause here as we move into this next class here in this dairy feeder division. I think a really nice set of calves here in this particular go-round. And up here on this top end, I think some really complete type calves that have some completeness to them, have some muscle shape to them, that have some power. But when we start to look at them, the young lady's calf that's going to win this class really the heavy muscle type calf here in this go-round. When you put your hands on them, this calf really carries more muscle shape right into the point of that shoulder, right at the top of that shoulder. A little more powerful when you handle him down to that top line and out over that loin edge. Really an up-headed enough type of a calf that has some volume and capacity to it, that really has some evidence of feeding ability going forward. The young lady's calf that's next in the lineup, super stylish as well, very complete up on that front end, very angular about that front, very level down that top. Now when I do handle him, I do think he gets a little flatter right into the point of that shoulder, but that's getting extremely critical because I like this calf in terms of length of body, I like in terms of length of stride, and I like him in terms of length of the way he's made from flank to flank. I think a calf that really is a lot like the calf right in front of him, just gets a little flatter about that muscle shape right into the top of that shoulder to compare the two of them. But two really good class winners at the top of this class here to start off the class. Young man's calf that's next in this lineup, a complete enough type of a calf that has some balance to him. I think he's a little more evenly balanced than the rest of this class. I like him into the top of that shoulder. I like him down that top line. Now, I don't think he's as powerful when we start to talk about overall rib shape and volume and capacity in comparison to those two calves that beat him. And I do think he gets a little narrower tracking when we get down low into those base feet and legs in comparison to those other two. But I think in terms of similarities, I think very complete about his overall design, like the two calves that lead off the class. Young man's calf that's next in this lineup, a calf I like in terms of rib shape. I think a deep bodied, deep flank type of a calf that doesn't balance up as well here in this go round. He does get a little rounder about the top of that shoulder, and at times gets a little more down at the point of that hip when we set him into motion in comparison to some of those other calves. The young lady's calf that's next in this lineup, deep enough sided when we get him on the profile. I think deep enough flanked, has enough forerib to him, gets a little steeper made from hooks to pins, doesn't balance up as well down that top line, a little flatter about that muscle shape when we get right behind him. I don't think he's as expressive about that center quarter or on down into that lower stifle as some of the other calves here in this particular go round, but a calf that you do like for the overall rib shape and dimension that he carries. Young man's calf that comes next in this lineup, long enough body type of a calf that has some up-headedness to him, gets a little flatter about his overall muscle shape when we get in this particular lineup. I'd like to stouten him up when I get right behind him, and I'd like to power him up down at those base feet and legs to move him on up. The young man's calf that comes next in this lineup, a long enough sided type calf as well, but a calf that gets a little shallower made. I'd like to see him be a little deeper bodied, a little deeper flanked. He does get a little rounder out of that hip, not as long and level from hooks to pins in comparison to some of those other calves in the go round. Young lady's calf that comes next in this lineup, a large enough outline type of a calf that has some levelness down that top line, has some levelness when we set him into motion, but just a calf that gets a little flatter about his overall design. I'd like to power him up off of both ends to move him on up here in the go round. And then the young lady's calf that rounds out the class, a calf that's a little steeper from hooks to pins. We'd like to level him out down that top line, and I'd like to see him be a little stouter made, especially when we get up on that front end through that chest floor. But a nice set of calves there all the way down through there. So let's give all those exhibitors a nice big round of applause here in this lineup.
In 5th place, Braylon Roop. In 4th place, Wyatt Armstrong. In 3rd place, Garrett Costin. In 2nd place, Kennedy Keller. And in 1st place, Kennedy Keller. Attention to the barns, attention to the barns. This is the first call for all 1st and 2nd place winners for the market class. Again, this is the first call for all 1st and 2nd place winners of the market class. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for all 1st and 2nd place winners for the dairy feeder calf market. Again, this is the second call for all dairy feeder calf markets, all the 1st and 2nd place winners. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the third and final call for all first and second place winners of the dairy market class. Again, this is the third and final call for all dairy feeder calves for first and second place.
As we move into this next class here in this dairy feeder division, I think we've got some differences of types and kinds as we line up here in this go-round. Now, as we start to come towards a class winner here in this lineup, the young man's calf that's going to win this class, really, in this go-round, he's the calf that has the muscle shape and dimension to him. He's the calf that has the thickness down that top line, and I like him when we get him on the profile. I think he's long enough from flank to flank. He has some depth of rib and evidence of feeding ability that you like him towards the top of the class. Young man's calf that's going to be next in this lineup, a calf that has some thickness to him, that has some dimension to him as well. Not as loose ribbed as the class winner here in this particular go round. A calf that I'd like to see just be a little bit bodied down a little bit more. I'd like to see just a tick more of him here in comparison to the calf that beats him. But I think in type and kind, I think he matches that class winner in terms of the way he's balanced. A calf that has some thickness to him down that top line and has some thickness to him in that center quarter. Young lady's calf that's next in this lineup, I like him in terms of depth of body on that profile. I think he's deep enough sided, deep enough flank. But in terms of structure, I think he gets a little more roach down that top line when you put him into motion. And when you get him right in that hip, he doesn't come out of that hip as quite as correctly as those other calves, and he gets a little shorter, choppier, strided off those back legs. Young lady's calf that comes next in this lineup, a long enough body type of a calf that has some stretch to him from flank to flank, a calf that gets a little more down at the point of that hip and a little flatter about that muscle design down deep into that stifle, doesn't turn with as much muscle dimension in that center quarter, just like to stouten him up and level him out a little bit more down that top line. Young lady's calf that's next in this lineup, a little more unevenly balanced here in this go-round. I don't think he blends as well when we get from that forerib back to that flank, but a calf that has some muscle shape to him. I think he's got some thickness to him. I just like to see him turn with a little more dimension up into that forerib, and I'd like to see him just give a little more flank to you in terms of depth of body when you move him on up. Young man's calf that's next in this lineup, I like him on that profile view. I think he's deep enough sided, deep enough flank. I just think in terms of muscle shape, gives up some muscle dimension, not as expressive, gets flatter about that hip and flatter down into that quarter. And when we get down into that lower base of feet and legs, really narrower tracking when he walks away from you. Then the young man's calf that's next in this lineup, a long enough sided, long enough top type of a calf, but a calf that gives up some muscle shape and dimension. For as long bodied as he is, I just like to see him a little more stoutness off both ends to move him on up. But a nice set of calves there in that go round. So let's give him another nice big round of applause.
In fifth place, Abby Savage. In fourth place, Lexanne Brown. In third place, Carly Roop. In second place, Anthony Pelton. And in first place, Chase Motes. Attention to the barns, attention to the barns. This is the first call for 15 years and older beef showmanship. Again, this is the first call for 15 years and older beef showmanship.
Well, let's give all these exhibitors a nice big round of applause here as we line up these class winners here to select your champion overall dairy, feed, or steer. You know, I think a really nice set of calves here as we work down through these classes, and I think certainly some calves that have some functionality to them, not only right now have some balance and style to them, have some muscle shape, but really some calves that have some evidence of rib shape and dimension that you can project them on out to be easy feeding type of steers or easier feeding type of steers. And that ultimately, they're going somewhere from here. You know, they're going onward to be fattened out, and I think certainly these calves have some ability to do that. Now, as we start to compare these 5 class winners here in this go-round, I think just some differences obviously in weight and the way that they were laid out here, but I think some differences in structure too when we start to analyze them. And, you know, as we kind of work down through here, I think there's some calves that have some more completeness than others. I think some calves that are a little more angular when we start talking about their shoulder design. I think there's some calves that are a little leveler top. I think some calves that are a little longer strided when we set them into motion. And, you know, certainly as we start to look towards a champion, there's a calf that I like that I liked in their individual class, and I like them when I get them out here as well, that I think they kind of put the parts and pieces together. I think they're complete enough and they're type and kind. I think they're sound enough in the way that they get out and move, but certainly have some completeness and rib shape to them to go on and be successful, to be fed out here going forward. But certainly I just want to take the time to thank the young folks for being out here and participating this year. I think certainly has been very challenging no matter what way you look at it, and certainly being able to come out here and participate, I commend those young folks for doing so. But certainly from me to whoever helped behind the scenes to plan this and get these kids able to get in the ring and show, thank you from my end. And certainly make sure you take the time to say thank you, because planning a show and event always is something that takes some time and effort, but this year even more so, because it would have been very, very easy to throw in the towel and say, hey, we're just going to look for 2021. But somebody behind the scenes here got together here in Fulton County and got the kids in the show ring, and I think that's something to be commended, and I think we need to take the time to say thank you. So let's give all those folks a nice big round of applause as well, because a lot of time and effort went on behind the scenes. But, you know, as we go in here to pick a champion, as I mentioned, we're going to pick one that I like in terms of completeness and balance and style, and I think really in this lineup has the best parts and pieces that I like in the go-around. But it's been a pleasure to be here to evaluate your dairy feeder show, and we'll work on here in the beef feeder in a little bit later. But let's give these kids one more nice big round of applause, and we'll select your champion here in this go-around. Well, we're going to end up placing the top 5 here in this dairy feeder division. But as we go into the reserve place, I think there's a couple places we could go in this go-round. But, you know, for me, there's a calf that balances up extremely well when we get them in this lineup as well. I think they're a little smoother made when we get right out of the top of that shoulder. I think they're a little longer, a little leveler down that top, and a little leveler from hooks to pins. And that's going to be where they lands them here in the reserve spot. So let's give these kids one more nice big round of applause. We'll select your reserve overall, and then we'll continue placing the top 5 until we have the top 5 overall. A really nice set of calves there as we started working down through those top 5 there. So let's give all these exhibitors one more nice big round of applause and give all the young folks a really nice round of applause here for an excellent show here this afternoon.
In 5th place, Jarrett Rivenall. In 4th place, Titus Rivenall. In 3rd place, Jaden Bannister. Our reserve grand champion, Kennedy Keller. And our grand champion, Kennedy Keller. Attention in the barns, attention in the barns. This is the second call for beef feeder showmanship, 15 years and older. Again, this is the second call for 15 years and older beef showmanship.